Well, hey, student ministry and specifically seniors class of 2020, I'm excited to get to capture this via video and to be on the webinar with you guys tonight. But I know that this is less than ideal with regards to how we wanted to launch and send you guys off into the next season. But as we gather tonight and as we kind of think through some things over the next few hours and weeks, I hope and pray, as we've hoped and prayed for years now since doing this transition series, that this really would be a launching for you. And that's the image that we kind of use from our family ministry map, and that's the language that we've used. I want you to know that over your time within Eastview Christian Church, we really do believe that everything in has been kind of building up and kind of equipping you and putting together all of the children's ministry, all the way up through your student ministry experiences, all the way up until now. We really do think of it kind of like a NASA type launch. Like there's all of this stuff that's been planned and all of this stuff that's been put together and all of that stuff that's been prepared. And if you think about like a rocket ship launching into space, it really is the culmination of so much work. And that's really what the end of your student ministry time here at Eastview is. It's a culmination of a lot of things. It's the manifestation of lots of planning, lots of preparing, lots of equipping, lots of relationship, lots of investment, lots of experiences. But it's not the end. It really has all been kind of building up to this point where you, like a rocket ship, will now take off into the vast reaches of this world. And like rocket ships that get out, outside of our atmosphere, what happens in the midst of that launch is their perspective expands. And that's really what you're on the cusp of here, is an expansion of your perspective, an expansion of your experience of God. And so while we recognize and honor all the work that's gone into these 18 years to get you to this point, we are unbelievably excited for what's coming next. And so we crafted this transitions experience years ago to really bring the three major partners together with regards to this transition time in life. And so the first partner is the student. You're 18, you're on the cusp of adulthood and these brand new experiences and these new horizons. The second partner is the parents. And so mom and dad, that's why we've asked you guys to join us and why we'll spend some time tonight specifically talking about the parent experience in this transition. And the third being the church. We don't want to see students who have been part of our family, part of our flock for however long you've been around Eastview, wander off into the next thing and feel like they've lost contact, or they feel like they didn't have what it took. And so we wanted to make sure that you were equipped here at the end of your experience to step into the next thing with confidence. And so there are kind of three main obstacles or opportunities. Like any launch experience, there's an unbelievable opportunity in front of us, and yet that will come with challenges. And so the three that we're going to talk about today are spiritual autonomy, social upheaval, and scheduling freedom. Those are really kind of the three big transitions that are coming your way. And I just want to remind you, they might be tough, they might be obstacles, but they're also unbelievable opportunities for that expansion, like we've talked about, that experience of new adventure, new horizons. And so when it comes to the spiritual autonomy that you are about to experience, you will, many of you for the first time, leave Eastview and experience God in a brand new way as you go off into a campus, or as you go into military service, or if you go into an occupational field. Right off the bat, you will begin to experience new things. And that autonomy that comes with being separate from mom and dad, or starting to make your own kind of adult decisions, can be a little bit intimidating, can be a little bit scary. And sometimes we see, or have seen in the past, where students they'll look for the east view of their town, or the east view of their campus, or the east view of whatever. And it's really there's nothing wrong with being grateful for what God has done in the midst of Eastview, but there are so many more expressions of the church, and there's so much more to be experienced with this newfound autonomy. You don't have to go to the same kind of church anymore. You don't have to experience God in the same kind of ways anymore. You have a new level of agency, a new level of autonomy, and with that autonomy, I think, comes the new opportunity to experience God in a brand new way. And that's so often what happens in college ministries or in young adulthood, is that we see this almost revival or this brand new kind of experience of God that brings forth a fresh growth and a fresh maturity and new perspective. And it's something that I just want to encourage you. And God is active all over the world. There's not a corner of the planet that He's not looking to influence or to be present in. And so wherever you go, God will be active there, and you'll have new experiences of Him, and you'll have new experiences of the church. One kind of practical thing that we like to say with regards to spiritual autonomy when it comes to finding a new church or finding a new ministry, I often will tell college students or people transitioning into young adulthood, take 2 steps in before you take 1 step out. And I say that just because so many people, especially in the first week of campus life, or as they're, kind of this onslaught of new organizations and new things to join, everybody's trying everything, everybody's sampling everything, everybody wants to just, kind of go from one to the next to the next to the next to the next until they find their place. And having been in campus ministry for a couple of years, I can tell you that it's often the second step into a ministry that you take when you really get to know the personality of that ministry, when you really get to know the personality of that church. And so, everybody does some sort of kind of gathering or kind of social stuff, kind of a worship time, but join a small group. That would be an example of a second step. Or go on a fall retreat. That would be an example of a second step. Or meet with a staff member. That would be an example of a second step. Get 2 steps in to a ministry or into a church before you start stepping out to check out the next one. I think that just helps you get to know what one of the campus pastors that I used to really love said. Every ministry has a personality and every student has a personality. And if you're going to find the relationship that's mutually beneficial, you got to take 2 steps in before you take 1 step out. Something practical when it comes to social upheaval, there's some really big changes coming to your social life. The people that you've been closest to over the past however many years have kind of been determined for you. They've kind of been dictated based off of class schedule or groups and clubs and organizations that you're a part of. Some of you guys, even just by location, the part of town you live in meant you went to a certain grade school, meant you went to a certain junior high, meant you went to a certain high school. And so you're about to experience people from probably all over the world. And that will feel very different. It will be an expansive experience. It'll be something that kind of rocks your world at first, and it'll be a little bit overwhelming, especially if you kind of fall more to the introvert, disposition. You may get a little bit depleted or a little bit anxious or a little bit afraid about all the social upheaval that's upcoming. But I just want to let you know that that's also an opportunity for you to cultivate new relationships, for you to cultivate new friendships. And I like to think about it this way. It's not like all the friends you've had up to this point in life no longer exist. It's like they kind of compose this core, and now a new layer of people are coming into your life. And so on a practical level, I would just encourage you to be the friend that you want to find. Be the friend that you want to find. If you're not open and authentic and honest about how you're doing, other people aren't going to be open and authentic and honest about how they're doing. If you're not upfront about what you believe and the things that you value, if you kind of play the chameleon, then other people are going to kind of play the chameleon. You won't get to know them for sure. I'd also throw maybe a little bit of a caveat on here about social media. We have so many more tools at our disposal today to remain connected, but sometimes those can become a distraction from forming new connections. I was walking on campus one day when students were still around, and I was blown away by how many students were locked into a device with earbuds in, talking to somebody who wasn't physically present while moving around all these other people. I was sitting outside of a classroom while everybody was waiting to go into class, and there were all these conversations, lots of ambient noise and such, but none was happening with the people in that space. And so just the caveat about social media, it's a great tool for maintaining those core friendships and keeping connected with people. Just don't let it become a distraction from making new friendships. The last thing that I want to talk about in this segment is your scheduling freedom. So a big transition coming your way with the autonomy and the upheaval, but really what's probably going to be the biggest change that you feel right off the bat is a freedom with your schedule that you've not had. And that's crazy, but what I would say on a practical level with this newfound freedom, there really is a great opportunity here. I would say to follow what you know and to practice for what's coming. Okay, so follow what you know and practice for what's coming. So probably from K through 12th grade, you've been on a schedule that operates roughly from 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. or so. Like that's just kind of what you know. I often will joke, like school ends at 2:30, starts at 8, ends at 2:30. It's like 8 to 2:30 is kind of the school day. Well, 8 to 2:30 is still kind of the schedule in college too. You've just shifted from 8 a.m. to 2:30 p.m. to now 8 p.m. to 2:30 a.m. And so the schedule really does just kind of drift and almost does like an inversion from a.m. p.m. over to p.m. a.m. And that can be really challenging. So one of the things that I encourage transitioning seniors all the time with is make sure that you get 7 to 8 hours of sleep, maybe even up to 9 hours of sleep, depending on how much you need that to stay healthy and to stay vibrant. Scheduling sleep is a big deal. I would also say to maintain what you know. Try to keep your school schedule, try to keep your work schedule on that AM to PM shift from 8 a.m. to 3 p.m. or whatever it is. Try and get all your coursework and schoolwork done in that time period so that you have your evenings and your weekends available to be social. If you can lock in that schedule, which is the schedule that the majority world works on, so that's really what's coming. If you can lock into that schedule early on in college, and they try to help you out really as a freshman or first year student, a lot of times you just end up with 8 a.m. classes anyway. Just take that time. You've already been trained for it, and it's what's coming after college. So just embrace that schedule. I know from time to time that'll mean you don't get to binge watch the show into the late hours of the night, or from time to time you may miss out on a major gaming opportunity or something. Let those be exceptions. Take advantage of that socially. Take advantage of that time to build community and friendship. But watch and make sure your schedule doesn't start shifting to where that's the norm. Because what we see with a lot of the anxiety, a lot of the panic and stuff of college students is that they've let their schedules completely flip upside down, and they're no longer maintaining these healthy habits that would really lead to thriving and flourishing. And so just overall too, if you're somebody who's pretty prone to like join everything and program everything and schedule everything, I also just encourage people not to program, not to schedule more than 50 hours of activity within a week. So that includes your school, your homework, your campus job, your organizations and things that you're a part of. Remember, follow what you know and practice for what's coming. It's not a healthy habit to have over 50 hours of programmed experiences every week. You just lose out on so many things. And so try to keep those things under 50 hours. And you'll find great freedom in your schedule to be social, and you'll find your soul, your spirit thriving in the midst of that. So a couple of practical things on those 3 transitions. Let me just end this video talking about the 5 milestones of adulthood. If you're wondering kind of what's the trajectory, what does it look like to get out into orbit? What does it look like to really not just navigate into young adulthood, but through young adulthood into adulthood? How will we know when we've become adults? And as a young adult pastor, this is something that we've been talking about with young people for years now. I give them 5 milestones, 5 things to look for as you progress toward adulthood. Now, these aren't linear things. They happen in different sequences. They happen at different times. They happen in different ways for different people. But they're 5 things to kind of keep tabs on. And parents, we'll talk about this a little bit more in a few minutes. But the first one is your life's mission. As you go into college, remember that the thing that you're going into college for is to find this unique design, this unique way in which you're made. And that's going to be something that happens educationally. It'll be something that happens experientially. Hopefully you're keeping mission front and center. The second one I like to say is mortgage, because this is probably your first time getting out of your parents' house and starting to experience the world at large. And it'll feel a little bit disconcerting at the beginning because you don't really have a sense of place, a sense of home. But eventually you need to start finding a place, not necessarily to take out a loan and buy a house, but a place that feels like home, a place that you feel like you can put down some roots. That's what's behind the mortgage milestone. The third one here is a relational milestone. It's marriage. It's something that traditionally we've looked at and said this is part of becoming an adult. I like to think of it as it's kind of like the part of young adulthood when you start to get outside of yourself and you start to recognize that our world is better together. And for many of us, that leads us into the calling of marriage. Not for everybody, but for many people, that leads us to seek out a partner whose vision and values in life are aligned with ours and who we have a synergistic effect to, where we can form kind of what Paul calls that one flesh mystery and step into the rest of our lives together, yoked in marriage. The third piece or fourth piece here is multiplication, which often will follow marriage. It's, the kid piece that a lot of sociologists would say. But I like to think of it, especially for those who don't enter into marriage or for those who don't have children or can't have children, it's that awareness of the next generation. When you begin to realize, like, oh, there's something going on here in this relay of faith from generation to generation. There's a world beyond me. That's when we start to see kind of this multiplication piece taking effect. And then the last one on here is money, the primary marker that most secular organizations will refer to as a marker of adulthood is financial independence. As Christ followers, I like to think of it more of financial maturity. When we start to really experience financial peace and financial freedom, when we start to see our lives reflected in generosity and in gratitude, that's when we start to realize, oh, there's something here, not just being off mom and dad's payroll, but there's something here that feels very adult. And it's a beautiful thing when we see kind of these 5 milestones crossed off, and now we start to really feel like adults. That's when we're really launched and into orbit, we're into space, and we're experiencing God in a new way and the universe and the world in a new way. And so we're going to take some time here for a few questions, and then parents, we're going to jump back on and talk through these 5 milestones and what the role of parent looks like in the midst of them.